Dreaming and we're recording.
All right, perfect, thank you. So I'm going to call the order the December Victorian Village Commission meeting, 12/14/2022. Our next business meeting will be Wednesday, December 28th, 2022, at 12 noon at 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204, the same room that we're in now currently. Our next hearing date is proposed for Wednesday, January the 11th, 2023, at 4 p.m., 111 North Front Street, second floor, room 204. All of that's still current, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Swearing staff,
Kimberly Bernard-Shee, Assistant Historic Preservation Officer.
Hunter Rayfield, Assistant Planner.
thank you. Do you agree with the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
Thank you so much. Introduction of commissioners present. Rob, would you kind of brief?
Robert Dowson.
Perfect.
Pete Schuler.
Melinda Shaw.
Reed Sprite. Tim Skinner.
Sean Conyers. All right, thank you. Let's see, Kimberly, do you want to offer anything about the hearing format, guidelines, or public forum?
We do not have a public forum.
Awesome. Okay. So, other than that, approval of staff approvals. Do you want us to go ahead and a motion first and then any abstentions?
Yes, please.
No problem. Is there a motion for approval of staff approvals, please?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect. Go for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Go ahead, Kimberly.
All right, staff approvals start on page number 5 with 990 Delaware Avenue, 976 Neal Avenue, 949 Neal Avenue, 339 West First Avenue, 316 318 Pan Avenue, 190 West First Avenue, 311 West First Avenue, 322 Wilbur Avenue, 791 to 793 North Park Street, 1101 to 1103 Howland Street, 1105 to 1107 Highland Street, and 104 West Hubbard Avenue.
As well, seems like. Thank you. So staff recommended applications.
We still have to do the minutes.
Oh, thank you. So approval of the minutes from November 9th's meeting.
Motion to approve November meeting minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion at all? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's passed. So now, okay, staff recommended applications. Thank you.
All right, so we're actually going to start with the continued applications because there's no staff recommended application on this agenda.
Awesome.
So our first application is 1156 Neal Avenue. This application is to remove the existing retaining wall and replace with a new retaining wall with a wrought iron fence. The new retaining wall would span approximately 33 feet, 1 inch along Neal Avenue. It would be 3 feet 6 inches high with a stone veneer aligned to the cap. The wrought iron fence would sit at the top of it and recess back a little bit at 3 feet. And they are proposing to plant 2 trees, as that was in the application. I have included the previous commissioner's comments from the June 8th hearing as well as the November 9th hearing. And just for the record, Commissioner Hissom has joined us.
I get it.
Hello. The commissioners at the business meeting for 1156 Neal Avenue noted that the stone veneer proposed for the retaining wall was not typical. If there were other houses in the area that this design is based off of, the commission would like documentation provided. The commissioners were also open to an alternative material for the retaining wall, and we're okay with the options. HBO staff did request what types of trees are being proposed, and that the applicant has responded as well in coordination with the city arborist of what tree they are proposing and with a bit of an update, I will let them talk about that. So I'm not taking up too much time or misstating anything. I did look up all of the addresses that they were provided. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each of them individually, but there are COAs for all of them. Some of these are new builds. One was done on an appeal of a denial. So if we have any specific questions, I will be more than willing to answer them as they come up in discussion. Staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the current retaining wall height be retained. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.13, the standards for site improvements, specifically A and B, as well as the Victorian Village guidelines on fences and yards.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Can you guys state your name and get you sworn in?
Adam May.
Christina Lishaneski.
Thank you. Do you guys agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. So, you guys go ahead and finish up where Kimberly left off.
Yeah, the near choice, I guess, was a little confusing, because we had already had the steps in that drawing right there approved with our original, stone choice. So we would hope to be able to match the walls to that. Beyond that, we did include some other options that Christina was okay with, for you guys to consider. We had proposed after the last meeting the idea of moving the fence just behind the wall, so it was not on top of it. After going through the neighborhood and seeing some of the properties that had walls of similar taller heights, with fences exceeding the height that we have mounted right on the wall, I did resubmit the initial plan with the fence directly mounted on top of the wall, just because we didn't see, I guess, any reason why it shouldn't be approved. But yeah, we tried to submit some similar stone examples, some properties that had similar heights and wall and fence combinations that we are proposing. All of them are taller than ours, with the exception of the last one, which I think is 3 inches shorter. We did talk to the arborist, and he did not want a tree in the tree lawn. He didn't think there was enough room for it, and he approved the 3-inch Katsura tree for the replacement of the hackberry in the yard as well.
Thank you. Just anything else? Okay, no problem. All right, so last time we had discussions, there were more so about the location of the fence as it relates to the height. And then at the same time, I think that there was a discussion about the materiality of the wall itself. That was kind of part of the last, I think, 2 conversations. So,
Maybe just a couple clarifications, just to jog my memory. The proposed height of wall and fence is the same as what it was last month, is that correct?
Correct.
So you kind of evaluated and decided that was still appropriate. And then it looks like the way I'm interpreting is the wall to the south, it's matching that same height, that's also 3'6".
Correct.
So that will be a continuous line. And then the wall to the north is 2'6", correct?
Right.
And those 2 walls are the same material?
I don't know if they're the same as each other or not. I'd have to double check, but they are a stacked stone wall. There should be
Yeah, there is.
pictures in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, I think the photos, it's hard to decipher. It's almost like it's the same.
It looks very similar.
Same material throughout.
I mean, like in my house currently?
Yeah, well, both your
Yeah.
house and the 2 neighboring
No,
houses.
so the house on the north side is a different stone.
Okay.
And then the south side is the same.
It's the same.
They were owned by the same
The
owner.
same,
before.
yeah, the same
I see.
owner,
Okay.
supposedly, yeah, exactly.
Let's see this one. Yeah, well, this is similar. It's a bigger block. Yes, okay. This is the one to the north. It's correct. And that probably comes into play as much as anything when we scrutinize the material. It's what's happening adjacent. It's not just kind of as a standalone, well, this is used in other locations throughout the district, but it's that, whatever that is adjacent to both sides, since there are walls on both sides of you.
So should we just go ahead and take this, and maybe two thoughts. So number one is any concerns with the proposed location of mounting a fence on top of the retaining wall, given the precedent images that have been provided?
I think when we talked about it initially, it was in relation to Neil Avenue specifically. And keeping the kind of look and feel of Neil Avenue, and the comparisons are not Neil Avenue.
Well, and I think part of that too that comes into play is it's not just the elevation, but the section through that relationship of the sidewalk, the tree lawn, setback of the house. I mean, it all comes into play as part of that experience.
You guys think that what the brick wall is overbearing and distracting from the architecture of the home? It's the picture of you down there where the cursor is. One more. So I think that was the original complaint, or one more up, is that, hey, this is blocking the house and we're gonna feel dwarfed by the size of this wall and fence, and no one can walk past this house without feeling too small and without feeling like they can't see the beautiful house. And I just don't see either of those things when I walk by something like that.
And for me, it's maybe less about that, just feeling, does start to feel a little bit more imposing as you're walking by.
Like that experience right there, too imposing to be on Neil Avenue.
I would add,
And all this is subject, I mean, it's subjective.
Well, yeah, I think that's part of the frustration is we're kind of getting a lot of different subjective opinions from different commission members versus straight answers on what is really wrong with what we're proposing.
I would like to add just,
I mean, I think that's, I think, let's just go back for a second.
I'm just gonna interrupt for 1 second though. So, all right, so I think the presentation, obviously, we've offered a presentation. So I think let's stick with commissioner comments first. And then if we do have questions, additional questions, so now we would just avoid the kind of the back and forth and such, and just, at least we can just kind of move forward.
Yeah.
Move the application forward and try to help. From that perspective, is that fair? Okay, so go ahead and commission comments then, first. So, I think, Pete, you were able to offer some comments. I think Tim.
I have another one.
Okay, that's fair. Go ahead.
I think it's interesting because this house is very interesting because we started with the backyard and oversized fence, went through that whole process. Now we're going to the front yard and it seems like everything is being beefed up and there's nothing in the landscape or topography that says there is this big difference that we have to create this thing. Most of Neil Avenue is open and fairly transparent. So if you guys are saying, I don't feel secure, I'm trying to beef up my yard, I'm doing this and that, that's a totally different game than trying to say, these are our recommendations, this is what we're trying to create within the neighborhood. And if there's a reason, usually we find out reasons, that's a different story in my mind.
it's a condition.
Yeah, I mean, I
Well, I guess, yeah,
That,
I understand, but we'll come back, we'll circle back, so you completely write notes and then we'll circle back to, if that's okay. Okay, thanks, Jeff. Anything else? Reed, Rob, Melinda, or maybe?
Oh, I didn't finish asking for the people. Yeah, my thoughts are on the veneer. There are some examples shown, again, none of them on Neil, except the church down at the kind of the commercial end of Neil, if you will. There just isn't veneer on walls on Neil Avenue, except for that church at the very end. All the way up. And I think that takes away from the historical feel. I don't know if there's any thought to a stone wall like you have or rebuilding that, and what was the process, so.
I would agree, because with the exception maybe one of them, the precedent walls aren't historic walls. They're mostly modern materials.
but they were approved though, right?
But some of them are with modern buildings. So a modern wall with a modern veneer in front of a modern building is very different than a wall in front of a historic building.
And I'll let you guys come back. I'll come back to you guys as well. So just for perspective. So any additional thoughts on the veneer or the proposed stone veneer
Okay.
from a commission perspective?
Yeah, my only thought on that is I think the code talks about replacing like with like. And I would think that that's replacing that with.
And I think it's particularly heightened in this instance because of what's happening adjacent. As soon as you change what has historically been there, character of that, it's one thing, but changing it also impacts what's happening adjacent to you, which is same or similar material.
And we did propose a lot of other veneer options in there. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm just trying to help from that perspective, only because the way it started out. So I just want to make sure that at least we can make some progress.
And last piece, the Star Avenue is an example one of a new build, but it's also individual properties tied together by one element. It's not individual marching down there at that height with that height of effects. So that's a little bit different scenario also.
And that one was just for the height. Sorry.
We can be subjective to this. That's
Anything else? Because I mean, again, I think we want to try to make sure that we're not giving them mixed messages, make sure that we're getting clear about the feedback. And so I think we've addressed the height. Is there any more comments on the height?
Yeah, I assume you went down Neal Avenue measuring. There's nothing quite this tall. That's why.
Yeah, I've known all Victorian Village.
Yeah, because I walked and actually had a tape measure. And it had some of the more imposing ones on Neal. The highest one I found was 5'9", which is that 10 inches shorter than what's proposed.
And then as far as the veneer, have we addressed or is there any additional comments on the veneer or the proposed stone before we kind of allow the applicant to just answer some of our questions related to those two elements? Okay. I'll turn it back over to the applicant. So,
So I can start. So,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hissom, so I know you weren't here the last couple of times. I'm sure you were involved with the monthly meetings when we were not present. But the fence is really, more of a decorative feature. I think it adds something to the property in general. In Neal Avenue, it's very, they look sophisticated to me, and it looks finished. And so the problem is that the way that our property is it just is elevated from the street, and the whole block is like that. And the retaining walls are important because if you walk one block south, you'll see the way that the properties are, all the mud is coming down the properties without the walls. And so we just really can't do anything about the retaining wall because it's there. And so that was the reason for the fence. It's more decorative. We do have children, but obviously we watch them very closely. And it's a feature that we do like about about Victorian Village, and as well as, Harrison Village West, I believe, I'm not sure what the name is specifically, but going into, I've said this before, going south out of Victorian Village, but still on Neal Avenue, there are walls plus fences that are this height specifically. And then my other comment from just a homeowner standpoint would be that even though I live on Neal Avenue, there's nothing in the Victorian Village guidelines that say that the guidelines are applied differently to people who live on Neal Avenue versus people who don't live on Neal Avenue. The only difference in the guidelines are businesses, in High Street versus the rest of Victoria Village. So I would advocate for the fact that, we should be treated equally to the rest of the people in Victorian Village.
Just to, I guess, add to that, in addition to the aesthetics and the elevation of the house itself, the wall height is meant to match up to the sidewalk height. I know there were some mentions, I think Mr. Skinner, about lowering the entire yard last time, 6 inches. It affects the neighboring properties when we lower that yard, if we were to take an extra step down at the stoop or something like that, we've got these elevations we need to match up to. Right now, this retaining wall is meant to be as low as it can to meet the height of the sidewalk and not have some slope down to it. We did make sure the fence was a foot lower than in the guidelines. We want to try to work with you guys too. The veneer, there are veneered walls on Neal Avenue. I don't have pictures of them right now. There's some shorter ones. I can think of one particularly on the west side that wraps down the corner. In my photos, I didn't submit it today. There are veneers there. I mean, I took some time to look up, Victorian stone, looking at different stones present in Victorian Village. I don't find a lot of continuity, to be honest. And as far as Victorian historical stone, they're usually just using what's local and available. I see all types of different stone in Victorian Village. I don't know if that's something that is wanting to be preserved. I think there should be more of a definition of what that means. And if there's not, I feel like maybe that element of preservation is kind of not present as far as stone walls go, just because I do see such a variety of them, such a variety approved. As far as modern versus historical veneer, we did include some other options that I believe are at the bottom of the slideshow that maybe you guys would like better, but I did try to pick ones that's the ones in red there that we are okay with. We'd like to have the option of picking all of them because it's kind of hard for Christina to decide which one she wants for her project, not knowing, and then we have to, try this one, come back, try again. So, we do try to pick ones that are appropriate, that are natural stone, that are not like some of the concrete veneers that I see around Victorian Village, especially on new builds. There's several, I think some in my pictures that are not even natural stone. So we are trying to do some justice to that look and create something that's attractive. There certainly are more modern linear veneers that you can choose from, and we've avoided all of those. The continuous look, I can appreciate the, understanding that the ones on Star are more continuous, and that's why they're able to have that veneer, that those were in there more for the height issue, grossly taller than the one that we're proposing, because they're up high and because mounting the fence to the top of those walls makes sense. I still think you can view those houses very nicely, and sometimes walls are taller and shorter as needed. The individuality of Victorian Village is something I enjoy when I walk through there, seeing things change from house to house, not having it have to be the same as your neighbor. It's one of the charming elements of the area, I think. So I didn't understand that you had to do a design with the neighboring elements in mind. I think it's overly limiting in this case especially. But, we did try to give you some more options and things like that, or present some more that we thought would be appropriate to at least, if ours is unacceptable, get some guidance as to what would be acceptable versus just picking one and trying again. So
That's very, very helpful from that perspective. So thank you for being patient. Very helpful. All right, so height, before we get, Kimberly, did you get a chance to take a look at the options that were being proposed?
Yes.
Did you feel as though specific ones represented something that would be, I guess, considered appropriate? Or
Different samples kind of represented different things, and I think that was the applicant's intention. They can correct me if I'm wrong, but certain ones were examples of where the veneer was, other ones were examples of rather than a fence on top of the existing wall.
meaning that, like, so there's a last page, I think page 21, if I remember, yeah, that one. So that one, I think these are the options or I should say the additional options that may be available to select from.
I think two of them are a much better fit with the others or the one that's currently proposed.
And I think that's where So I wanted to understand if your staff recommendation was based on those, these other options or?
So my staff recommendation is for either, keeping this existing
Okay.
stone wall, replacing it in like kind, or with this. So it's.
Perfect. It just,
One of those, it covers all options.
okay, very helpful. So team, can we spend some, I mean, it seems from that perspective as far as maybe the understanding of these stone with these options, is there an alternate selection that would be, I should say, considered to be more palatable or appropriate?
Yeah, looking at the pictures of your house, the existing foundation is a limestone foundation, which is common in Columbus, really this part of the country. So looking at a stone that relates more to the cut and type of stone that's on your foundation to relate it back to, I'd say either the Eden machine cut veneer tumbled or the Eden dimensional split face would be a better fit with your house in this particular location. The other one, it's too polished. Like it's more of a very fancy upper story type stone veneer than what you would typically see. So these two, I think, would go better. The big thing then is how the corners are handled, so that when you turn the corner for the retaining wall, making sure that it's done with like the L-shaped unit, so that it's not, you can't perceive that it's just a 2-inch veneer.
Yeah, I think they have full depth options for them too.
So I just want to make sure, so you said, Melinda, you said that the Eldon machine cut veneer.
The
and then
Eden machine cut veneer tumbled, it's a long
Okay.
name, and the Eden dimensional split face.
Would agree.
Yeah, I also agree. And to maybe follow up on your treatment of corners, I think key that return, how it relates to what's adjacent to you, there's a clear definition. One property to the next, as it is now a change of material.
What was that? I'm sorry.
That return is clear and deliberate, that you can tell that you're changing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we have returns on both sides.
And then the other thing is how the top cap interfaces with that. What the depth of it is, what it's like. Where the pattern repeats, that would be interesting.
I think those are all random pattern when you order Eden boulder stone.
How thick is the cap? It's called out as a limestone cap, but it isn't.
Just 2 1/4 inch. We would have a typical 1-inch overhang minimum over the face of the veneer.
So it seems like we're all on the same page related to the materiality possibly.
I'm not, go ahead.
Okay. Okay.
I still think, I think it looks like it has a fake feel to it. It looks fake and, I mean, you see that, there are some things on Neil Avenue that I think predates the commission, or they were done without COA. There's concrete cinder block walls, wooden walls on Neil Avenue. And I know you're not proposing that, but I just think it detracts from the neighborhood.
All right, so I'm just gonna move to the height. Any further discussion related to the height or, are we still in agreement that, that this is from our last meeting, that this was too tall? With the precedent images that they're provided, is there a variation in opinion? But it seems like it's still a foot higher than maybe some of the conditions that maybe Rob had kind of experienced that others, have observed or,
It's a tough one because it's really not clear in the standards of, it's clear how tall a fence can be. Combination and up to, is it?
Yeah, I don't think when the guidelines were written, they were thinking about fences on top of retaining walls.
Right.
Because if you look at the very first picture of this property did not originally have a retaining wall.
Sloped.
Yep, so this one went in at some point and it's before we have photos of it. So sometime between, I think, was it 19 and,
Well, even the 1989 picture, it's like a 16, like that.
yeah, it's changed over time, so.
Keeps growing.
The wall, well, it might not be original, it might have, it might have been, it's historic age in its own right. And yes, that photo is annoying, but that's how it is. It's, the one looks correct and the other you're keeping your head for. So this, if the commission might have to discuss, does the retaining wall, is that a contributing feature? Are we going to consider it historic?
My underlying question with the height is one side's going to be the same height as it is. Proposal is to have the other side now be up to a foot higher, I presume to be level. Is that required to make this, is it going to look wrong if you were to say it has to stay the same height for the whole length of it? It looks nice and straight on the plan, right? But that I don't know if that's accounting for any grade changes or anything. So I mean, it's to the point we were just having, they kind of keep creeping up, right? The fences get higher and higher and higher, right? And that's my concern here is that we've taken one end of this fence, gone up an extra foot above the fence that's right next to it, wall. You've taken the retaining wall on the 2'6" side, taking it up to 3'6". The adjacent wall is 2.5. Is it possible to keep the same height of the retaining wall that is there currently?
No, I don't think it would look good. I don't think it would look right. I put another picture in there, toward the end, just to show how, each wall at a residence is going to respond to the site, and every site is different. That one at the bottom right there, the walls change as needed to respond to the sites, and the house next door is a different elevation, so it has a shorter wall. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. It happens every day, and I can understand the continuity, but I just, I think it's a stretch to say we're creating some sort of negative element or negative juxtaposition of this wall to the next wall just because it's a foot higher. Well, it's because the rest of the wall is a foot higher and because that's the height of the sidewalk.
I guess what's interesting about this, and we're going back and forth, back and forth. This wall is like a running street elevation at a very much small level. So I don't know what it looks like on the left. I don't know what it looks like on the right. If we were building a house and the house was 10 foot higher than the other house, and it was within the code that it says X, Y, and Z, even if it was a totally different type of architecture, we would want to read what that looks like. And what I can't see and what I can't figure out is what is the element of the house on the left and the right? And how is your fence? Your fence might be beautiful, but your fence might be really totally out of whack when we look at it in total. 3 different types of fences, 3 different heights, but what does it say together? And that's what we're missing here. We're just looking at this individual thing. And I understand that individual houses can have individual vocabulary, but I think when we're looking at these things, I think we need to start thinking about these a little bit more holistically. I'm not a landscape architect, but I think this piece is no different than an elevation of a street and houses.
So just to help a little bit, so this image here, I think what was asked of the applicant was to add in the adjacent wall heights into this elevation, which are represented here in 3'6", and then this one here is roughly that 30 inches. But to your point, there's no streetscape, so to speak, elevation, a more broader kind of understanding, but.
So left and right, if my neighbor says, I want to put a fence up also, then what do we do? It's what we're talking about are precedents here, and I think we need to think about it.
I think what we're saying is the same thing. So that image that we just had up, right, that's perfectly flat, looking like the street is perfectly level. And we're just missing the line of how that interacts with the sidewalk, right? Unless, because I'm trying to envision if it's if everything's flat and you got 3.6 here and you got 2.6 here, how does it make that transition today? It's level today, right? Because the sidewalk is going up in one direction. Is that a fair? Well, I mean, how do you get from, it's either this much out of what?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so there's a course that is pulled off?
Yeah.
When the fence returns back to the house too, the elevations of the yard itself are more similar. I mean, they don't, it's not like we have a fence it's just at the street itself right there. And I think that was just, a choice of them to build a certain wall high. I don't know why the builder originally didn't put a wall there.
You zoom in where that big tree is, right at the edge of that.
There is a picture of that in the application,
Yeah, it looks like 5 courses on one side, 6 on the other.
page 11.
In regards,
So the transition, the site elevation is less in terms of rating height to the building.
Right.
And they both slope up going to the houses. So, the lawn gets at some points higher than the wall would be right now. It's going to level that out. But even on the neighboring side, it does slope up going toward the house, at least a foot there. So the property itself and the irrigation is right at sidewalk.
So if this is something that we want to continue it to see additional documentation, can we, or is there any other additional questions we want to ask of the applicant? I'm just worried about more so dragging the application on for another continuation.
Efficient.
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't think we should do that. I think we should make it a decision.
Yeah, for sure. I think that it seems like there's enough information here. I mean, I know that maybe some of the commission members were not here or present, prior, which is understandable. But I think the things that have been asked of the applicant, I think they brought forth. So it seems like materiality is something that at least could be addressed and talked through. I'm just not understanding the temperature in the room in terms of the height. And so,
And I was gonna say the trees are also on the application. But hopefully we can agree they're reducing the tree, and the city arborist has also chimed in, he's okay with their replacement, so.
that one seemed a little bit less, because I think last time when we talked, that one, we really were asking for that engagement because we didn't want to impose something that they would have a roadblock later on. So they've done their homework. That's very helpful. So I think the item C, I guess, is regarding that, I think is something that we can move forward with. So height wise, I need a little bit of help regarding that, guys.
And given the existing conditions and stair and what's trying to be achieved with normalizing that, I'm okay with the wall height itself. I'm still struggling with the fence on top of it. Case.
Anybody else? I know that last time I think Tim's been pretty consistent on that message in terms of that. I think that's last time when we talked to being able to kind of step that back, at least have that foot, whatever that made, 18 inches, whatever that was, so that step back, seemed like that relief offered a little bit of assistance on that.
And I do also want to say, I very much appreciate your evaluation and going out and finding those examples. It is really tough, and it does have to be, in some cases, site specific to what's happening around you.
Any other thoughts? Okay, so I'm just gonna try to take them, I'm presuming today, just to help move this forward, a vote. I'm gonna split up into 3 particular items. So number 1 would be the materiality. It seems like we're all on the same page in terms of materiality. Other than,
One other thing about the materiality.
yes, sir.
I'm not so sure at that height and with that pattern that 2 1/4 or 2 3/4 is big enough. cap
I agree.
to top it.
It should be more like 4.
It's a pretty standard cap size, and even those large walls on Star, I can't imagine those are any thicker.
Most of those are modern walls though,
The older walls need to have thicker caps or.
traditionally, yeah.
So, and I'm also going to add in, if the material is approved, I just want some clarification. That way, if somebody comes down the line of asking if they can use this material again, why we specifically approved it for this site.
It be specifically approved as it relates to the foundation walls of the house.
Thank you.
So in terms of the cap,
841 is a good, example of,
Denison,
yeah,
Of what now?
the cap.
the cap.
So you saying you guys would require a 4-inch limestone cap on the wall?
I mean, if you look at the bigger walls,
Yeah,
Like,
that's what I saw.
the 103, 128 Star, 841 Denison, even the 191st is thicker than 2 inches. 204, I think, is 2 inches, is more like 2 inches, and it looks way too thin. It's not.
What about the one above that one?
190 West First. That's more like a 3-inch. It's better, but it's still a little on the thin side. Because even the brick cap, I mean, standard brick is thicker than 2 inches.
does the product application provide a variation in the thickness?
It's called out to be a Indiana limestone, so that's stone coming from a quarry.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, 4 inches is a big cap, at least as far as like production and cording through it. I mean, a 3-inch cap wouldn't be acceptable. You guys would have a 4-inch minimum as far as that goes.
I could live with 3, it will look better as 4 then. That's fair.
When you're getting them custom cut, it does vary pretty dramatically cost-wise when you go from those inch jumps.
I don't know, I think we're value engineering this, and I think it should be done right, and I don't think that, what are we gonna say the next time someone comes?
Sure.
I mean, I think 2.5 is way too small.
For sure.
I think 4 is more like it, but I don't know what 3, the difference between 1 inch is gonna make on that. 4 definitely makes a statement, 2.5 doesn't do it, so
Would this be something we might want to review as subcommittee?
Perfect. Yes.
Thank you, Kimberly.
yeah, or a drawing that literally
Yeah,
shows
that's
us
good.
what it is.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the subcommittee kind of.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking, maybe that was submitting what the 2 different options would look like.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, so that's item A. Item B. Item B is the height. I know your application earlier, or your original application had it pulled back. Would you be willing to move forward with that
We'd really prefer to have,
application or?
I'd really prefer to have it mounted on top.
Okay. And then I guess would it be more so just given what the information that was offered today in terms of what that vote represents from that perspective, so we can vote on it as is, that component, or we can vote on it as maybe submitted of pulling that back based upon the feedback that was offered at the last meeting.
Of the other submitted option with it detached from the wall, you mean?
That is correct.
As an option.
That's correct.
I guess we can see how the vote goes. Yeah, I think it makes sense to have it centered. The examples we see are centered. It's more sturdy, centered. It's where it belongs when it's in relation to a wall.
Okay. Understandable. I just wanted to be sure that we were staying in alignment in terms of what you were asking us to vote on. Okay?
Is there a way to get like a I guess, a conditional approval or something like that, or how does that work? If it is rejected, then we resubmit or?
So if they were to not deny it, you will get a appeals application, and you could appeal it based on financial hardship or unique and unusual circumstances, or you could also submit a new proposal, so something that they haven't voted on. So say if they were to vote on the fence as installed on the wall as opposed to the fence recessed back from the wall, and they denied the fence on the wall, you could submit the recessed fence back.
Okay.
Do both options. But
Yeah.
isn't the code that it's 3 feet from the ground, not from the sidewalk? The building code?
Well, the height of a fence, it is from the walking surface. It depends on how high that walking surface is above ground. So right now, really what it wants to do is with the height that it is, it would be better if the wall is lowered to 3 feet and the fence itself is 3'6", more meet the building code.
Okay.
Because at the height that it is, it's getting close to being a guardrail. Guardrails are 42 inches from walking surfaces.
The walking surface is the sidewalk.
No, the walking surface is your yard. You're not in danger of falling from the sidewalk into your yard. You're in danger of falling from your yard into the sidewalk.
But I don't know if your question was, I think you're kind of going back to the guidelines of max height of 4 feet. So is that
Yes.
more so what you're asking? And so how is that interpreted? Is it
Yeah.
just the height of the fence material? And in which case is that 4 feet start at
The walking surface.
walking surface adjacent yard or the lower?
The guidelines, I don't think are clear.
They're not-
The building code is clear.
Yes, building, and I don't think that's the question here, is guardrail, it's about the total height of visual construction.
Perfect. So, and then item C, I think is pretty clear, right? So just one clarification, Kimberly. For item B, they've asked for a vote on both options. Both options are not present in the application. It wasn't submitted in that.
They submitted the original
That's correct.
with it recessed back, and then they submitted the updated one.
That's correct.
But typically, we know both options ahead of time.
Right. I just wanted to be sure if we did that approach, just to try to help move it forward, that you
Yeah.
have the information that you need to support 2 votes for item B.
I mean, I think we do rectify what we talked about.
Okay.
And I don't want to belabor.
No, I just.
Set up too much, so I'm sure we call it to the commission with whatever they're comfortable.
Okay. Does everybody understand what I was asking? Okay. All right, so let's do item A. So item A is materiality.
Sean, can I say something, one thing about that first? Just
Yes,
one more thing.
Yes, sir.
We focus a lot on the relation of the height of the fence to the other fences. And kind of my thinking is the same with the materiality. If you've got these old stone stacked walls on either side of it, and you're gonna have a veneer, that looks like a modern veneer. So that's kind of my.
Those 2 walls though have been built since the 1989. They are not historic.
Understood. But I would say they, like a lot of things in Victorian Village that aren't historic, they add to the historic feel of the neighborhood. That will be a difference, just as the height.
Okay. So item A, can I get a motion approved as submitted with clarification of the 2 selections that were identified? And then I think that there's a potential subcommittee as it relates to getting a little bit more clarity on the cap things.
I motion to approve,
Motion to approve the application with the option of veneers A and B with subcommittee X, Y, and Z to
fill in the blanks.
review the cap.
Yeah,
Do you want me to do it?
sure.
Motion for VV 22 04 007 C, item A, which is material of the wall. Motion to approve with the condition of alternative,
Do you need the names?
yeah,
Even dimensional split face
with even dimensional split face
or even machine cut veneer tumbled.
or even cut machine tumbled as provided on page 21. And for cap recommendation of 4 inches, possibly less. No less than 3, to be reviewed by subcommittee.
What's the subcommittee?
It's me,
Me,
Melinda.
Is there, can we have one more at least, guys? Is there a possibility?
Sure.
Rob. Thank you, just in case, just. No. Perfect. Does that help us? All right, thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, any further discussion on item A? Go for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 2 opposed. Yeah.
Oh, good God, now I have to do math.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay.
That's okay.
All right, and quick show of hands, who made it? I got
Nate, or-
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yay or nay?
Nay.
Nay, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like still motion passed for item A. Thank you. Item B related to the height, so I'm gonna say B1 is going to be as submitted with the location, I shouldn't say that. I should say it, yeah, B1,
You know what? I think we can only do one option.
That's what
I'm
I-
sitting here and I'm getting that.
that's what I thought too. I just want to be
In
sure.
my stomach.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna ask the applicant, which option would you like to vote on?
So if we pick whether we want it in the middle of the wall or whether we want it outside of the wall, and then
Yes.
if it's denied, we can reapply
Yes.
with that particular element.
On the, on the wall. Start there.
Yeah, it's definitely
That's
what
what
we
we,
prefer.
that's what we prefer, it looks nice.
Right, and just as a reminder to the commissions, if you do not deny it, I'm going to be asking for section of code and guidelines.
Wait, sorry, say that again?
So if we deny the height or the fence on the wall, I'm
Yep.
going to be asking for the applicable sections of code and guideline for why we're denying it.
we're gonna need some help with that, guys. Real respect. So, all right, so item B would be for the height and for the location of the fence to be directly centered on the wall itself. Is there a motion?
Motion for VV 22 04 007 C, item B, which is the height and total height of the wall and fence. So
No, it's just as submitted.
as submitted.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion for clarity? All right, so go ahead for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
2. All those not in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we need some help on the set number now. Was that like 3 and 3 or was it
5 and 2.
5 and 2?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So you've got on the staff report, the standards for site improvement, as well as Victorian Village guidelines. So I'm thinking you might have alluded to a City Code 3116.11, or sorry, .13, the standards for site improvement. B, which part of it says chain links or privacy fence should not exceed 6 feet in height and shall generally be restricted to siding rear yards. Or A, the landscaping and similar improvements should be compatible to each other.
I think it's both.
Okay. Okay, I've got to note that down
Take your time.
as I'm typing that out. Were we alluding to any portions of Victorian village guidelines for fences and yards?
So you saying the fence height is considered 6 feet because it's on the wall, is that? Or the fence is considered 6 foot, over 6 foot height now?
This fence is facing the street not exceeding 4 feet.
So the wall is counting as the fence, is that what I'm understanding?
That's kind of what I'm asking as part of the,
That's, yes, I hadn't understood that.
yeah, most of the time, if I'm, if we're seeing the denial, I might have some stuff lined up that I think the commissioners are going to talk about. This is not one of those times that I was prepared, which
That's
happens
okay.
occasionally. So I rely a little bit more on the commissioners to kind of point out what exactly they've been thinking that they might not have specifically articulated.
Anything else to clarify before we move on to item C? So item C would be the landscaping.
Motion for VV 22 04 007 C, item C, landscaping as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you so much for talking those items through. Truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. As a quick note, since you have a denial coming, we don't typically get these too often, I will send a number of documents over. I will send something out as well. It's just standard, so that we know that you receive the documents. If you want to take me to it and submit a new application, please do so, but you're still gonna get the couple of
You know,
things sent.
I guess a good understanding of why it was denied and everything was, I'm sure, for the next one.
Thank you. All right. Application number 2, 1116 to 1122 Harrison Avenue. Do we have the applicant? 1116, yeah, 1116 to 1122 Harrison Avenue. All right,
So that was item 2. Okay.
yeah, so we're gonna skip 2.
Yep.
And we'll circle back to it kind of towards the end, just to make sure that the applicant, isn't running late.
Yep.
So we're gonna move on to 1117 North High Street. Do we have the applicant? Awesome. First, so this application is the result of a code violation for work already completed. This is to remove an internally illuminated sign put up without approval, replace a 10-inch high by 91-inch wide wall sign centered over the shop windows, 2 48-inch long LED external light fixtures. I think they've actually updated this, and I just didn't update the agenda. Then place an 18-inch high by 28-inch wide blade sign north of the door. The blade sign would have an external illumination as well, and install a 38 by 7/8-inch high by 18-inch wide vinyl graphic to include the business's logo, name, and hours. Commissioners at the business meeting requested the specific cutter product sheets for the proposed lights, including mounting details and dimensions. They also wanted clarification on the blade sign fixture details. If the blade sign fixture isn't being reused, they would like the mounting details. HBO staff has been working with the applicant throughout the code violation. There's currently a temporary sign, which would be up no later than tomorrow. Staff recommends approval of the application as submitted with any and all clarifications to be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to issuance of a certificate. Basis for recommendation are the short-term design guidelines specifically for signage, including the general guidelines, wall signs, and the projected blade sign guidelines.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name, get you sworn in, sir?
Stephen Butzko?
Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You have anything to add to the presentation?
Not to my knowledge. I'm not the applicant. I'm just here in place of the applicant.
Okay. All right, no problem. Staff recommendations, probably heard, I think that probably Kimberly brought it back because of just there was some clarification items that, we had asked before. Is there any further thoughts, comments, or concerns?
No, I think we covered it.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion for VB 22-12 014 1177 North High Street as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is passed. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to number 4, which is 951 Delaware Avenue. The applicant is not here, but Hunter, who has already been sworn in, is going to help us out a little bit. The applicant gave me permission to continue this in his stead, and Hunter will fill us in on some additional details after I read the staff report. I figure I'm not going to have the voice for all of it. So the proposed work is to place new decking, railing, trim, and steps on the side porch. The new steps would be wooden to match. The landing, porch, and roof would remain the same. Wood columns would be wrapped with new wood for a clean look and painted white. They plan to add a trim around the base of the porch. The floorboards are being proposed as the Timber Tech Aztec in Castle Gray, and lattice porch skirt is to be added. The commissioners at the business meeting noted that the porch skirting should be vertical. They also requested a scaled measured section drawing of the porch. HBO staff has checked the file and there were no approvals for this porch. From the historic photos in the file, the porch has been there though. The applicant has inquired if other porch decking materials have been approved. Staff did recommend wood. Staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the porch floor be wood as well as the railings. The railing top and bottom needs to be a little bit thicker as well. Basis for recommendation are Victorian Village guidelines on porches as well as City Code 3116.11. These standards for alteration. I have been in contact with the applicant and I'm going to pass it over to Hunter to read his email off. Or his part of it.
Well, stop it if you think it's not. Kimberly, in response to your request below, attached, please find the scale drawing of the porch. Based on your feedback, I will not use wrought iron railings, but we use wood railings painted white, as indicated in my application. The lattice, which will be painted wood as initially proposed, will be placed vertically as shown in the drawing. I'm not able to attend the upcoming BBC meeting because I'll be out of town business. My apologies. As to the floorboards for the landing, I would ask the commission to consider the flooring as proposed for the following reasons. Can you please share these reasons with the commission for its consideration? Number 1, the landing is exposed on 3 sides, east, west, and south, and having durable material support. Number 2, the landing is at the back of the house, not at the front, and the side yard is surrounded by the house and fencing, including solid wood privacy fencing on 2 sides. The side yard and street are at the front of the house, a distance away, and separated from the side yard by an iron fence and bushes and plantings as shown in the prior approved landscaping design. Number 3, the material has the appearance of gray stained wood. Number 4, the color was selected to match the landscaping the BBC has already approved and the color of the house. Number 5, there is no other wood porch anywhere on the property to match. Number 6, this is not a replacement wood porch flooring material because the landing was basically never finished or painted. Consequently, this is not a situation where I need to replace original like-kind material with the same material. And number 7, the material will be consistent with the design and architecture of the house. It looks like gray stained wood flooring and will be durable. If, however, after this explanation, the commission still wants me to use wooden floorboards for this landing and will not approve my application with the proposed material, then I agree to amend my application to use wooden floorboards, painted gray to match the house. And I ask the BBC to approve my application at its meeting with an amendment to use wood floorboards on this landing. I agree to that. If there are any other issues the commission identifies during this meeting that will prevent me from getting a clean approval of my application, I ask the BBC to approve my application on the condition that I address such issues to the satisfaction of the BBC staff to obtain final approval of my application. I'm willing to address any concerns, but I want to move forward.
Thank you, Hunter.
Thank you so much. All right, so the 2 items that were raised, obviously the first one was decking. Any thoughts related to decking that would be different than the previous conversations about the synthetic material not being appropriate for the porch? Pretty easy. Number 2 would be the appropriateness of the styling of the skirting possibly was, so it looks like you amended the rotation of more of a vertical, more of an orthogonal, kind of condition on the lattice in lieu of the kind of diagonal that was previously proposed for the skirt. Any concerns, thoughts related to that amendment?
So going back, if you look at the roof is kind of hefty. And basically, I think we're missing some, after we had our business meeting, I went back and looked at it. The detail of how that column is going to be wrapped, how it's going to be finished at the top, how it's going to be finished at the bottom, how the balustrade is going to connect to those things. We're missing a lot of information on this.
So, Kimberly, I mean,
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
yeah, and I mean, just kind of, I think that was kind of touched on a little bit.
And
last
painted
time,
white.
And it was consistent. So, I think they did try to give us a little bit more information. They blew it up a little bit, but
Yes.
there are still some, details to Jeff's point that are still missing. Jeff, do you feel as though that in order to help move this forward, do you think that we could work through a subcommittee? If they if we move those things forward, more detail on the wraps?
I'm very worried just because of the lack of detail to start with. I see those 2 columns being finished out. I see the engaged ones that are in the house being similarly treated. I know he wants to move forward with this. I think those details for me, are more important than the porch material. I could care less about the porch material on something like this. I think it's more the details that people actually do see and experience.
It's not clarified if the columns and the structure are remaining or if it's being rebuilt.
No, he's saying they're basically remaining, and he's just gonna wrap them and paint them white with wood.
Wrap them in what?
Well, that's
the question.
Let's say wood, I think.
Yes. He said he was going to wrap them in wood.
I mean, it could be a 6-inch piece of wood, it could be a
Right.
half-inch piece of wood. We don't know what those details are at all.
So just don't play devil's advocate for a second here. So I think the intent in terms of the information that's being provided in text form, in terms of what the improvements are, I don't think that's going to change. I think just very similar to last discussion, and we just need a little bit more clarity on what the details are related to those elements. So I still think that we could move this forward as long as we were able to gain those details for a subcommittee review. That's, so I don't think they would still be able to move the project forward without those details. They were just one step further in terms of being able to move the application forward, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is that
I agree.
okay? Does that help, Jeff, in terms of your thoughts?
I'm fine.
Okay.
You know, there's many ways to accomplish this, but I mean, it has to be addressed.
Understand. Perfect. All right. So, only because the applicant is not here, I'm kind of thinking about separating this into an A and a B again. I think we should take the decking as item A, and then the B is the overall, just so that way it's clear. Or we can just do B with the understanding based upon our dialogue that we feel comfortable moving the project forward as long as the tongue and groove decking in wood is utilized in the motion.
Well, if you went to the subcommittee, I can also give them some additional comments.
Yeah.
As well as I'll probably link them to the meeting or consonant time so they can listen to some discussion.
So I think the comments, just I guess what I'm hearing is additional detail on the wraps of the columns themselves, how those are going to be detailed at the base and at the top of the column itself.
And the railing.
And
the
then how does the
railings.
railing hit? How does the railing engage into the
Column wraps.
column wraps, into the house?
And what's going on with the skirt board in terms of covering the ends of wood? Like, it's not clear to me what's happening there.
And I think that's why we were asking for that section, because typically there would be let's just say a band boarded piece of trim that goes over top of the lattice. And, I think that's what we were asking for.
Well, I mean, they're doing so much detail with the landscape and this.
For sure.
Porch is already, half finished, so
For sure.
let's do it right.
Does that
Yes.
help cover the concerns in terms of the details that will be needed for that subcommittee? Okay, so let's just keep it all together with the understanding that in the motion that we just referenced, the tongue and groove decking is the preference. And then outline the subcommittee with those additional details.
Just so I'm clear, remind me on some of the history of the AZAC and the use of it. I don't want to go into a whole thing, but there's precedent here, I assume, for not using it.
Yeah.
Do we want to not go? I don't want to open it.
I know
With Fox.
I've brought this up before, that it's a material that keeps coming up and
Yeah.
it keeps improving, and it's a
And they even make a beadboard product.
material that I'm finding it harder and harder to just dismiss it. I
Right.
think there are cases, especially on the front porch, that's highly visible, that has historic quality, that absolutely the wood, but I think there are, in fact, we approved one that was an
I would agree.
upper story
story,
porch, that this being a
That's why I said it was.
side porch, I would be okay with the Trex material, again, with the caveat that detail.
We need the details of the
I'd be
edging.
okay with their beadboard product. They make a decking product and they make a beadboard product.
That's different. Right? It's a different profile than what's being proposed. What's being proposed is truly a deck. We have decking material in terms of its proportion. It's not being proposed as an alternative to tongue and groove decking composition, right? I mean, it's
And that's key, is the
Okay.
tongue and groove, right?
Yep.
The-
That's correct. So is there a motion? Could someone articulate that in a motion?
Sending the whole thing to subcommittee then?
Yes.
Or-
Yes. The review of those additional details, right, exactly,
Okay.
will be of the subcommittee. But I think that we're going to vote on approving the application as submitted with the amendment of the decking being the proposed tongue and groove wood, and then additional details for the railings and columns and such will be reviewed.
What I'm saying is, I think they should stay together.
Then, perfect.
Awesome.
Okay,
Okay.
keep them together then.
All right. Motion for application VV 2212015, 951 Delaware Ave, to send to subcommittee with, wants to do the subcommittee? Linda
I will.
Okay,
and Jeff.
Okay. thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Perfect. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, application number 5 is 199 West Third Avenue. This application is to replace the front door on the north elevation of the front addition with a 2/3 white fiberglass door. Install a 2-panel smooth fiberglass door on the east elevation to replace the existing basement access door and install a new aluminum clad wood Marvin front door to act on the south elevation. Replace an existing window with the new aluminum clad Marvin double hung window. Add a new aluminum clad wood Marvin French door on the west elevation. Remove existing vinyl siding on the addition, replacing it with new wood siding to match the existing wood siding on the older frame addition. Remove the non-original chimney from the main roof line, patch and repair the roof with slate to match the existing slate. Scrape and paint the existing wood siding and trim colors to match existing or to be submitted at a later date. Commissioners at the business meeting requested a scaled measured post and existing elevation drawings for all elevations. They also requesting that the chimney details are added. HBO staff requested measurements being added to the drawings as well for clarity during the hearing. Commissioners also requested justification for the French doors. HBO staff requires that all front doors are made out of wood. There is a 1982 COA for removal and replacement of the existing fireplace and chimney. The chimney appears to be in the same location and design as the original, and HBO staff still considers it a contributing feature per City Code 3116.11 standards for alteration. Specifically 2, 5, and 6, it's staff's opinion that the chimney should be maintained. Per the 1921 to 1951 Sanborn maps, the neighboring building does not appear to be connected to the cottage. It is certainly very close. The staff recommends approval of the application with the condition that the front door replacement is wood, both chimneys are retained as repaired, and new openings remain consistent with historical openings. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11, the standards for alteration.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your names and get you sworn in?
Steve Hurt with Urban Order Architecture.
Dean Burlon.
Perfect. Do you guys agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Up to you guys.
Well, we understand the staff's report and all of those items. I'm just going to sort of go through our reasoning for some of this stuff. So like the front door is, as you can see in the photo that's up there now, the front door was on the front of the building, and that's now a window. And the addition that we're proposing to put this door on didn't even exist then. So we would prefer not to do a wood door based on our experience of the quality of wood doors these days. And the fiberglass we would paint to look, I mean, I think that they are very similar in appearance, if not the same.
And I think it goes back to using kind of what we talked about previous application of porch materials, modern materials. Using a wood door, same way as using a wood window now, doesn't really make a lot of sense anymore. So we're just, and it's not the original door either. So,
or the original location.
Or the original location. So,
and then the basement access door, that door is basically under dirt now, so it's just deteriorated. I don't know if anyone has any issues with that one. Then so adding the doors. So currently there's one door and it's on that addition. And then we have the basement access door. So there's like no openings. And we brought that old photo to show that there was a building on this a giant building on a teeny tiny lot. So it had to have been very close. And there are no openings on that wall. And we just wanted to add an opening on that wall because now that side yard where that building was is part of this parcel, or I don't even know if it's the same parcel, but it's connected to this property. And we would like to have access to that.
right, that's an unbuildable lot now. So it's part of this property. So the situation has changed from what it was originally when it was built. So,
and then the opening on the back addition, I think we felt that there is more more opportunities to do a different opening on a frame addition. And we know the addition is old, but it's also been sort of changed over the years.
Yeah, similar to the chimney. The chimney's been completely rebuilt with concrete block and brick. So I understand the significance of the location, but the material is not significant anymore. It's been altered. So we don't think it's really contributing anymore in that regard. So that's why we're talking about removal of that soon.
So those are sort of the basis of why we're proposing these things. And as you know, we probably wouldn't do this on any project, but there's some weirdness going on.
Yeah, exactly. We wouldn't propose openings in a brick wall like this if it wasn't for the situation in this particular house. Same way with the chimneys.
And I sent a photo of the fireplace on the inside to Kimberly that you can probably tell why we don't want it anymore. But that chunk goes up through the attic and
Yeah, just a reminder, we don't have any interior approvals.
I-
We do have the COA that specifically mentions this, so I would appreciate it.
So I guess questions, thoughts?
Perfect. All right, so turn it over to.
So
Teams,
after,
go ahead.
has anyone walked by this? And has anyone looked at this picture? This, I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna find out what this building was, because that side lot can be no bigger than 15 feet, and there's an alley there.
That's crazy.
So a lot of the stuff that we were kind of talking about on the side of that building, the opening, there's no way you could have an opening or shed any light with a 4-story commercial building next to it, which is, I'm gonna find this out, what it is. And then when you look at, the property, it's a cute little property. You see where, the front door was changed into a window, then you have the addition in the back. I think a lot of this stuff is making this place viable versus, messing it up. And I'm halfway on, halfway off with the chimney pieces, as long as they're taking care of the slate tooth, and I think that's the important thing that I think we should retain in Little Front. I just think that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Jeff.
And that's a good point about the size of the cottage. We're not trying to expand it. It's a very small space. We're just trying to work
Make it livable.
with that cottage. And the cottages are kind of disappearing around the neighborhood, so we're trying to preserve that soon.
Yep.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Yeah, just in general, I mean, I think I think it would be a beautiful house with these changes. It doesn't seem to me that it would fit. I think there's a lot of changes that could be made that would still make it more livable, but still fit. It just seems like a very modern house after all.
French doors aren't period appropriate to this type of house.
That's the main thing.
that's what's throwing me.
Yeah. But it's still, and I understand because it looks like the property's overgrown, but trying to match up, there's 2 sets of proposed elevations, but no existing elevations. So trying to fully understand what it looks like now, because there's also not good existing photographs of all 4 facades.
So maybe, Steve, could you maybe talk us through maybe the variation of the 2 sets of elevations that are in there?
So
Oh, sorry.
I just want to know, one is what the original submission was, the other was the revised,
Okay.
that was sent after the business meeting.
Oh, yes, you asked to put dimensions on, so I added dimensions.
Dimensions.
We had also requested existing additions.
That's the other big.
That's the big thing that we're missing.
Yes, and because the house already existed and we sent all the photos,
But
I asked
we can't
Kimberly-
clearly see an
I
entire
understand.
elevation.
I understand. I understand, but I tried to communicate that, like, you could go look at it, or I dashed in the windows, the old windows.
So we
And
go
you
up,
can-
go up to the beginning.
And you can look at the photos,
So-
if you have that.
If you, so number 4 is where we're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's replacing that door.
And then,
And that door is currently a replaced cottage, kind of.
and then the
Your
next
door.
picture, 5,
That's the basement door.
and is it,
Nothing else changes on that elevation except we want to remove the vinyl siding and use this sort of a double Dutch lap siding that matches that wood siding.
That's the east elevation.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the. Where is that called out or product submitted?
It's called out to replace the basement access door as item 2 on the
But the
Give
siding,
us a.
that is 5th on the application.
There's no cut sheets or product information.
or shown on the drawing, the extent of it.
Okay.
So is that something, if we were to go to a vote, that could be delegated to staff?
My 2 cents here is that, like, I don't want to prolong things, but I don't think with the drawings that we have, not having the existing and the fact that the French doors thing, I think is going to be a sticking point. And that's not something that we can just kind of say, oh, we'll tweak it as we go. We're going to need a new set of buildings. So that's,
And for me to change.
okay.
It
But
may
potentially the
not be
chimney-
original, but there's still some, I mean, the changes to a house over a period are part of the house.
Okay, so it sounds like we might be continuing this, so
Yes.
let's flesh out some details so we can, get the next iteration back and,
For sure.
either approve it at the next meeting or all things hopeful, possibly the next business meeting, which we have the unfortunate of it being between Christmas and New Year's, so forum's not great.
so let me just ask about the French door piece. So are you saying it's the French door that is doing it and it's something that needs to be more appropriate for an opening? And what would that be? Just a door?
The door, yeah. Like I'm okay with an opening in the side that does not have openings currently, but the French door just does not see right in either location.
And that's a very busy.
Or if it's a combination of doors and windows, you're not opposed to openings in that.
Right,
Right.
it's just, a French door is not appropriate to this
So
style. of
they're okay
interior.
with openings, it's just
Okay, so that's good.
French door.
Yeah.
And I understand that on the original brick structure completely. But on the frame addition, are you saying that it's not appropriate to put a French door on a frame addition?
Well, even that frame
Can
addition
we
has
go
been there
to-
since the 60s.
Can we just try to help go through the elevations? So, yeah, so south and the west elevation. So let's talk about the south elevation first. Steve, can you just give us some understanding of what we're looking at on that? This is the back addition.
Yeah, so we are replacing a
Yeah.
very small window with a larger window that matches the size of all of the other windows on the addition. And I think that somebody put a weird window in there because there's a kitchen in that space now.
Understand?
Then in the other space, we are removing 2 windows and putting a French door in.
Okay. Perfect. Then let's hold right there on that one. So can we offer any thoughts on, that would be the south elevation?
And do we have a photo of that? Is there a photo in there of
There
that?
is a photo of that.
Which photo is that?
Yeah, labeling the
Oh,
photos.
it's right there,
That,
fixed.
yes.
That's the odd window.
Yeah, and I did label the photos. So
So there you can see just kind of a random sampling of window sizes. So
So that's that back wall.
that's that existing back wall. So we're not changing the surface or anything. We're just putting a normal size window in there. And the reason that I'm saying that I think that these windows were randomly changed is because there are 3 different kinds of windows on that single elevation. And I think they did kitchen window so they can put a counter under it, and a bathroom window so they can put a tub under it, and then an old window that is still there.
So I guess the question is modifications to an existing, because I'm knowing that I don't think these openings are necessarily contributing to the history of the house or the importance of this kind of structure to the village. But, you know, can we modify these openings? So,
Any thoughts now? I only just tried to stop us because I wanted to make sure that we were looking at each elevation, given there's a slight difference between the two components. That was the only reason. So further feedback, I guess that would be on the south elevation.
Yeah, my thoughts is I don't have a problem with changing those, but it should be appropriate for the neighborhood. So, I just don't think French doors get that. Like that right there with a door, whatever a door is called, as opposed to a French door, I think would be fine.
So you're okay with a single
So this
glass
single
door?
window, right, single
door,
window, just a combination of two elements. But other than two doors or a French door component.
or similar to what we're talking about on the side, the door, maybe window, just some combination, more single fenestration openings rather than.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything?
Damn those French people. Who developed that thing to begin with and brought it over here?
All right, so move on to, all right, before we move on, anything, okay, cool. We're gonna move on to west elevation. So Steve, Dean, can you just quick about
So
what the west is?
that little horizontal window is existing in the frame addition. What you can see where the roof line changes, that's masonry to frame. And then we were just proposing a new modern opening in that wall that has no openings in it. So
Which, in the brick wall?
So that's
the new,
kicker.
Oh,
the
we
new
talked,
French
we
door.
talked about the brick wall, but we're making changes to the small window. Okay, so there's no changes
Yeah.
to the addition.
It's just only the French door.
It's the French
So
door.
it's French.
And as you pointed out, it seems like a much more modern piece, which is on purpose. Like if we're gonna put an opening in there, this is not an original opening, which is part of, what we try to accomplish.
Any thoughts related to the west elevation and the introduction of the French door?
Same issue.
Same issue.
So,
Do you have any sense as to what might be more appropriate?
Either a door and a window or two windows.
Yeah, we would really like to have access to the side yard.
Yeah.
So if we can be open to both of that, we would be grateful.
Okay,
all right, any additional thoughts or feedback? So can we touch on siding? Just, I think, I heard the French door was a concern of the team.
So
It seems like the elevations now, there's a little bit more clarity of the elevations.
Yeah, you can't tell from the drawings what's brick, what's siding to remain, what's new siding, and what the new siding is, what
Okay.
they're matching.
Perfect. So materiality of what's being proposed is, we don't really necessarily have a concern, but trying to understand it applied to
Yes,
what's, okay,
clarification of where it's going.
okay.
And if there is new siding, cut sheets of it.
it's milled siding to match existing, but I will try to figure something out.
Or a photo of what you're using.
Yeah.
That would be helpful as well.
And just for clarity, on the north elevation, it is the weird peaky porch thing that's sticking out the front. And on the east elevation, it's from that side basement door forward.
But we'll indicate that on the drawings.
Yeah. I didn't understand that there was confusion of that.
Yeah.
So that probably reminds me of too. So let's just blend staff.
Yeah, and I'm just, I guess,
letter had it.
and I'm just trying to draw any other comments out. So,
One would be the chimney.
yeah, and then the last one is the chimney,
sorry.
right? So siding, French doors, and then the last one is the chimneys themselves. So, or the chimneys.
That chimney, we're not doing anything to.
Yeah, so smaller chimney, that would be, again, that would be that south elevation.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very difficult to understand where that massive chimney is based on our photos. So we will do more to try to explain that. But our basis of the reason that we are proposing to remove it is just that it's non-original and massive. And I understand based on the historic photos that there was a chimney somewhere. But are we trying to recreate something that we don't really know what it is? And it was already approved to change it at some point. So I guess that's a question.
Any additional thoughts about the chimney that would help the applicant?
So the two chimneys we see in the historic photo are not where chimneys are located currently?
The chimney on this picture, this one, on the main house, that's the original chimney. And the new one is in a similar location.
The current one?
The current one, yes.
Not a proposed one.
Right, and we're proposing to take out the one was rebuilt, not original.
Any other thoughts on the chimney that would help the applicant in their revised application?
Is there a current picture showing the current chimney?
From the side, there's no front.
Yeah, I think it's kind of difficult to
Kind
get a
of see.
picture because of the foliage.
Because of the, yeah,
There's a good picture.
Maybe there's some additional photographs, maybe from kind of understanding that chimney's presence.
Yeah.
I think that might help you make your case if you get one from the front, if it's as wide as it implies from the inside the house.
And it's blockier, yeah, so.
From the side, it's like, okay, well, it's not a big deal, I want to retain that, but we just don't have the full picture.
In fact, you could, it's possible to recreate that view existing.
Yeah, see that little tree in the front yard? It's really big.
The leaves are going out now.
Yeah, now's a good time to go.
It's a 2-inch tree now. It's
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Just for clarity, are we planning to continue this, and Kimberly and I will work together to figure out what needs to happen?
Yeah, I'll provide the minutes with the feedback. Be on the January agenda. You've got over a week from today to submit, and I will include that in the letter. So I don't think it's enough that has an extra week. If it is, then you get an additional day and you hit the deadline, but I will double. I thought I had an extra agenda, an agenda 2023 calendar, but.
And one other question.
Yes.
Is about the material of the front of the new entrance door that faces the street. So I won't use front door.
Any thoughts on the alternate material, or the use of the alternate material of that door as it relates to?
It's not the front door, it's not the original front door. Again, we have materials that are thinking what for it is. It's not a biggie for me.
I agree.
That's a good brand of fiberglass.
Yeah, I think the composition, I think is more critical to me in terms of that. So the material.
Yep.
Yeah, that's quality.
It looks like it would go.
Yeah.
They've come a long way. It's the guidelines were written.
Anything else, guys?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
So,
real quick.
so, is there a motion to continue?
Motion to continue VV 22 12 199 West Third.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, I'm going to ask for a quick 5-minute break.
Okay.
And
Yes, ma'am.
we'll be right back then.
Okay. And I think we only have one or two more.
We've got 3, but I think it's not only, it was possible to come with more.
Okay, good. Thank you. Oh, my
Good.
And then work, first one, got a trainer. That was a tough one. Also.
No, I think we
We think we're
That's real well.
Right. The last one must be the definition. Further.
So if we,
They just, they don't, they didn't.
I was surprised when we opened this stuff yesterday and look.
Yeah.
I was like, what happened? I know.
Yeah.
I saw that paper. I was like, oh, why is it? I was like, oh, what's covered? Man, I thought it was going like that.
For this guy, so. Cause. Same.
How we doing?
You doing fine, sir, yourself?
Ready for the holiday break?
can we get a break?
Yeah, we're here the week after Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. Yourself?
Doing well.
That's good.
Are you trying to sweeten us up?
Really? I'm used to the mob violence. I'm just hiding.
That was a good one. Okay, so I didn't want to say it when I walked in, but you are taking your life in your hands, getting in that parking lot when city workers are leaving. It's like a road race coming down and whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like,
What's what happens when you're late?
like, I was like, oh my, I might write the mayor.
Right when I was crossing, coming to the building, like crosswalk, there was a car going southbound on Front Street.
Oh, that's not a good.
God.
Like, and at like 25 miles an hour, all the other cars were honking at him, and the guy's like completely oblivious. Is like, the other cars, like I heard 3 people shout at him that you're driving the wrong way. Like every other car parked or moving is facing you. That should be a sign.
Yeah.
I mean, and he would have had to go by that point 3 blocks or so going the wrong way in
He's
front.
probably inebriated for God's sake.
Yeah.
Like half those city workers.
Some people just get confused by the one-way streets.
But no, I'm talking about the city workers, that it's like a road race to get out of the garage, and you better not get in their way
So,
when they're leaving.
yes, so that's like, everybody has that problem. Because like, the city cars typically park on 3 with people, come and go. And, yes, I am very skittish in parking garages. So I see my car and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm like going like 2 miles an hour. It's not so bad for who is actually behind me when I leave. But yeah, see the people that like just.
Notice Hunter's not saying.
Take the bus. Can't blame me. I'm not getting caught. Thanks.
All right, we have Commissioner Dodson and Linda to come back.
Okay, perfect.
Oh, let's see.
I agree. I've been saying it has been a great idea all day.
It's this darkness so early. It's like,
We're almost to,
when does it, when does it change?
the 22nd.
Of December change?
Yes.
Thanks. God, this kills me.
Smooth sailing after that.
It just keeps getting brighter until noon.
All right, so our next application is 1077 to 1081 North High Street. This application is to install a temporary wall banner on the north facade measuring 10 feet wide by 16 foot high, as well as 2 proposed variants. One which proposes to increase the length of display from 30 days to 365 days. And the second, to increase the allowable graphic area of the banner from 16 square feet to 160 square feet. Commissioners need to discuss if they consider 365 days to be a temporary duration. And if the proposed signage is not appropriate, what would be an acceptable alternative? Would a sandwich sign at street level be a possibility? So staff recommends two options, either continuing the application to allow the applicant time to investigate signing alternatives that meet the short north design guidelines, or denial. And I've listed the applicable short north design guidelines for the sake of time. I'm not going to read all of those out, as well as not recommending variances. So that's option B. Basis for staff recommendation are the short north design guidelines for signage, specifically the general guideline, the wall sign guidelines, the temporary sign guidelines, and banner and flag guidelines. And the commission might need to clarify how they view the sign if pieces and parts of that apply or do not apply.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you state your name, sir, and get you sworn in?
Good evening. My name is Mike Shannon, attorney on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Do you agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, to be extremely candid, I missed the business meeting on this, and that's generally where I can tell if it's a no or a hell no. In this particular case, I do feel compelled to give staff the opportunity to engage with me and would be amenable to tabling it. I would, if you would entertain it, like to get your gut reaction, however visceral, to this request. I would simply state that I guess if my client has a hardship, it's the fact that I'm their lawyer in this particular matter. Graphics code has always read like stereo instructions to me. But this is fairly straightforward and unfortunately is not consistent with the short north guidelines. Staff is correct. But with the nature of the beast that we're dealing with in the short north, there's a strong desire to be competitive. And although this is a short-term solution, we wanted to see if it would have any merit. I'm familiar with the prohibition about phone numbers and emails. And we can work on eliminating some of that to the extent possible and go with the logo. But just whether or not you'd even consider a sign of this or a similar size where we're proposing the location would be helpful. If it's the size, we can work on that. But if it's clearly something that my viewpoint was antithetical or what was in the plan. I figured since it wasn't viewable from the pedestrian experience, it might be amenable. But that's contrary to what the short north seems to want. They want it geared to the pedestrian experience. There's not a whole lot of room to navigate here. You're all familiar with the structure. As a civilian, I think it's a phenomenal development. But we're trying to figure out a way in the short term to improve our visibility. We have units from $1,600 to $3,500 a month, 750 square feet to 1,250 square feet. And of course, we are mixed use with some of the retail tenants having vacated here, particularly restaurant note here recently. So having said all that, I want to be mindful of your time. I don't want to prolong this, but if I could just get even a few members to give me their gut reaction, I'd appreciate it. And that's basically it.
Thank you, sir. Open it up to commission thoughts, guys.
I would consider 365 days temporary.
Okay.
So we've dealt with this on other buildings, and I think the timeline is a little bit exorbitant. I also think, I forget Dennison and
I'm trying to figure out if that's
Dennison is Star. I think Dennison and Star across from the hospital.
Yeah, it's not.
You know, it was reduction in size, taking a lot of the graphic off of it and actually cutting the sign up so it wasn't one big thing.
Okay.
So I'm open to, you know, ideas, but this is just, it's a little overboard. And also having dealt with, fixing the past signage on that wall that was done without a permit. So I
I
think
do
that,
not have the sense of history there, and that's something else I need to
yep.
fill in the blanks.
Any other thoughts, duration of time, adjustment on that, adjustment on the overall composition, getting back into the guidelines from that perspective in terms of size?
I mean, it's kind of like you just heard the last little cottage story.
Yes, sir.
You know, they didn't have email addresses, they didn't have telephone numbers, and it's kind of, in a queer way, an analogous situation. So I think you just have to work around those issues.
Understood. Appreciate your candor.
Yep.
So with that being the case,
I would respectfully request
motion to condition, is that what you want to do, or go to continue?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. So is there a motion?
Motion to continue application VV 2212017 1077 North High Street.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion at all? Go vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, if you'd indulge me in the spirit of the season, I have a very quick story to tell you about being persistent in this business. It's very important to keep trying. And when I was 6 years old, at this time of the year, I was writing a letter to Santa Claus. It said, "Dear Santa, my name's Mikey. I'm 6 years old. I've been good all year, and I want a new bicycle for Christmas." My mom came by and saw that letter and took it, ripped it up, and said, "Young man, you don't like Santa Claus. That's horrible." So I wrote a little letter to Santa Claus. "Dear Santa, my name's Mikey. I'm 6 years old. I've been good all week. I'd like a red bicycle for Christmas." Same result. So exasperated, I said, "Dear Santa, I'm Mikey. I'm 6 years old. I've been good all day, and I want a red bicycle for Christmas." My mom came over and said, "That's it, young man. You're lying to Santa Claus. You go to your room and you think about it until your father does." My dad wore a 56 coat and carried a gun and a badge. And as I was walking in my bedroom, I looked in their room. I saw a statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary. I went and got that statue and I put it in a shoebox. I hid it under my little sister's bed. I went back to that kitchen table and I wrote the following letter. "Dear Jesus Christ, my name's Mikey. I'm 6 years old. And if you ever want to see your mommy again, I want a red bicycle for Christmas." Have a good holiday season. Thank you very much.
I want to know what your dad did.
He got me a bike, but it came with a dispatch bag and a 17.
Have a good holiday.
Thank you so much.
Application is 200 West 4th Avenue. This is a conceptual review to place all solar Taft Valley Drive. Panels are the Eagle modules of panels measuring 39.5 inches by 79.06 inches deep. Commissioners at the business meeting were supportive of the application, though the solar panels are not noted there. Noted is not being visible, but it's a stable roof. Panels may be visible from the alley to the slope of the roof. Comes into the commissioners, is this okay? The commission has previously approved solar panels on the flat roof being the Circus House's garage. HBO staff will be requiring scale measure drawings of the proposed panels as laid out for documentation consistency. This is what we requested, along with some other stuff for both of the Circus House proposals. Since this is conceptual, commissioners should offer design feedback that can be utilized by the applicant to further refine the proposal for a future meeting. Basis for staff recommendation is City Code 3116.11 with standards for alteration, as well as the National Park Service, the solar panels on historic preserve properties bulletin.
Thank you, Kimberly. Can you guys state your name? Get you sworn in, sir?
Yeah, I'm Bob Cisco with Ohio Power Solutions.
And my name is Michael Kazar. I'm the owner of the house.
Do you guys agree to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, guys. Go ahead, turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, basically, as the installer, we've done several 700 in Central Ohio, and I just want to make sure I get all of your questions answered as far as, I know it's typically the aesthetics of it in terms of conduit runs off the roof, going around gutters and big shepherd hook style stuff and punching in. The way this is going to be set up, is basically, there's one little piece, right, here's the ridge, right? There's two rows of panels there. We're gonna punch in under one of the arrays, as they're called. So there won't be any conduit coming off the roof whatsoever. So it'll be into the garage. We can run our wire then how we have to. The only thing that has to be outside is, utility, National Electric Code required AC disconnect, which I showed a picture of. So that little gray box has to be outside. But it can actually be on the interior where the yard is, okay? Because we'll put a placard near the meter and just say, hey, there's a solar disconnect on the south side of the garage, and that's acceptable to the utility. So, so it's really just gonna be no conduit off the roof, crossing gutters or anything.
So a lot of this is educational, at least for me. And I guess what I would like to see is some kind of cross section. So if this is my roof, does that panel have an optimal angle? Is it just consistently 5 inches or 6 inches from the deck?
This is a good pick on what we just call a flush mount, right? So
Okay.
normally we just mount the panels parallel and flush to the roof surface area. Some people, want me to, can't we tilt them because, isn't this angle better or something? And aesthetically, it looks terrible. It just gathers leaves and debris. It's just not a good idea. So this is a
What's
classic.
that dimension from the top of the panel to the, is that like?
They're about that far off the roof.
Oh,
3 inches.
3 inches. Okay, interesting.
And it just provides a little airflow, basically.
Okay. Good to know.
So on that pic, just pretend that's the roof. There'd be a little piece of conduit, like maybe around the second panel, so it's really obviously not visible in the alley, but probably not even visible from his yard.
Through the roof.
And that will connect between the two arrays and then punch in under the one array.
Got it.
Into the garage. The little inverter box will be mounted inside the garage. And then we'll just punch out to the AC disconnect and then back in.
Okay.
Any additional thoughts, concerns, so, right?
Have you guys approved alley garage type solar requests?
I don't believe,
No, just the circus house.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know if that was technically on an alley, because that was their carriage house garage and the house is.
It is on.
It's still an alley.
But you've approved.
But
that.
they were actually mounted off like a relief and they were angled, so that's why this is a little bit different situation. And then the only thing to be like, not to be picayune about it, but I would say that if this is my roof and these are my panels and there's a conduit that is on the roof that goes between those, I would say it blends in with the roof material, not, it's not yellow or orange or anything like that, so it goes away.
But that connectivity piece between the two arrays is actually internal in the garage. Am I right in saying that?
It would normally be external.
It's
He's saying that's why I was saying.
You know what I can do actually is
Okay, so it is external.
and then we can, if need be, we can revise this or you can make note of it is, I can simply, right now I'm saying I can punch in under this array. I'll just punch in under both.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, when we go through, we're setting precedents on all this.
Right. No, that would be the way to do it is, if I can punch in under one,
Right.
why can't I punch in on the other? And I
Yep,
can.
that would be ideal.
Yeah, it's like an extra $20. We'll just
Yep.
punch in under both.
We
And
better
that
talk to
way
him.
you won't see anything. Yes, we'll just do it that way. Basically.
Yep, I think that's better. Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other feedback from the applicant to help them? All right, well, there's no vote. From that perspective, but very helpful dialogue.
Yes,
Thank you so much
absolutely.
for sharing some additional thoughts.
So I'm gonna ask them a question. Does the commission still want that kind of section drawing showing how far those come?
No, I just wanted to know, because there's no angle, I just wanted, for,
If you want us to revise that little hand-drawn to scale drawing, just to indicate that the penetrations will be under both arrays and nothing external?
So,
that.
yeah, what I'm going to ask is you can show all of the panels that are going to be on there, because we require that for other applications, just so we have that consistency. And I'm going to ask the commission to clarify why they aren't asking for the section at the hearing, just so we have everything on record. And I'm being consistent when I'm asking the future applicants for the information. Why one might have to give a section, one might not.
I think that you could clarify it by adding, if you're changing notes on this, so you're showing that you're penetrating for each panel, also just add a note that panels are parallel to the roof surface and set off 3 or 4 inches,
You
whatever.
can add that as a note.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that would clarify it as much as the second.
Combination of that with that photo.
I agree.
Yeah.
The
would
photo's
agree.
really good.
Tells the story.
Perfect. So,
Can I just clarify, what's the difference between, what's conceptual review?
So a conceptual review, they don't vote, so this is them just giving feedback, and we can take a little bit longer with discussion as well. And since we haven't had a lot of
Yes.
the solar panels, it's also kind of to gauge, are they supportive, or do they want additional changes? How are we going to move this forward? So what you're going to do is you're going to submit any additional information a week from today to get on the January agenda, and then I will place it on. And solar panels, I have historically put as a staff recommendation, so they're ones that I typically think are very close to being ready to be approved. And I think with what the commissioners are saying, I would do the same for this one, that I'd put it on as a staff recommended item. So at the next business meeting, they have the option of looking through it and saying, okay, we have everything, we've already discussed everything we wanted. We don't need to talk to the applicant, we can approve this today as it is. And they can move it to staff approval at the business meeting if there's a forum. Which we're between 2 holidays, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen. So the commissioners could also say, we don't need to see the applicant, please let them know, we'll just vote on it as well.
all right, so if we provide all these other little changes, and I have even other pictures I could provide, like at a bird's eye view on the roof, showing you what it looks like.
Cool.
Even better.
That'd be great.
And then our presence wouldn't necessarily be required. I guess we're taking a chance that there's some new question that you'll ask and.
Yeah, no, I think this is probably gonna go the way.
Yeah, I will caveat, I typically don't say where I'm gonna place stuff on the agenda until I have everything, just in case somebody throws me for a loop that they're explaining a really basic process or application, and then they add in something they're thinking is not really important to mention, but it's something that kind of escalates it to the commission, or the commission has questions. So we're not gonna make any final call until we have all the documentation, but typically how it moves forward. Sad.
If you're grabbing additional photos, something that's not, I don't think it's critical, but if you do have photos from street level or alley level looking back up and what you see or maybe what you don't see of this, I think that'd be interesting.
Right. The one pic you had a pic of the, from the alley.
Just
So
because
you-
everything's
with
pretty
the-
tight, it's hard to get
With the
good
setbacks.
pictures of anything.
And I guess I was
Which kind of proves the
referring
point.
to another example, a
Past
perfect
job.
example of past job. If you have anything that shows,
Right.
from that vantage point that you
Oh,
can't see it, I
yeah.
think it's.
So the nice thing about this, they're 47 inches back off the gable.
Yeah.
You're just not,
Yeah.
you're not gonna see
Agree.
it, but I have tons of pics. I'll have some more pics of other
And
similar
not to be too
singles.
nosy, but what is that vehicle on the left side?
The trailer?
Well, the right side.
Is that
What is that?
That is a camper. It's a mini camper. It's called a Meerkat. And it's
I thought it was like some little minibus.
yeah, it's small enough and light enough that you could pull it with a small sedan.
Oh, wow.
There. So it's wildly fun. And it fits right in the garage, which is pretty cool.
Better than a tent.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Holiday.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
All right, commissioners, we still have application number 2, that the applicant is not here. I don't know if we want to give some basic comment or if we continue this. Do you want me to read off the full staff report, or just want me to do what?
Which one is it again?
Number 2.
It's the
This
same.
is the stairs, concrete stairs.
Yes, this is, they're removing the existing concrete steps and replacing it, both in the front and the rear.
We haven't seen any solution, right?
No, I just communicated to the applicant that the commission had suggested a test patch. And the applicant had let me know they were going out to look at things the following day, but they hadn't.
So this one is gonna have to come to roost sooner or later.
So are they receptive to the test patch condition that was recommended?
Yes, but haven't received it back.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was asking them to do that to see, how thick is the concrete on there? Was it just skim coat or was it something thicker? Was it gonna damage the brick?
Right.
Could we propose for them to remove it to return this back to the original condition?
Okay, but yeah, can't let this one go.
No, this is a code violation.
Right.
If they don't respond to us, it gets handed cutting back to code because code's overseeing this.
Okay. So a motion to continue?
Motion to continue.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Anything else, Kimberly, that we need to touch on? You gave us the schedule.
The 2023 schedule has been finalized and sent out as well as handed out. I'd say please block off your schedules accordingly, but I think that's a little bit presumptuous. So you could kind of plan some of your year out. It sounds like we are still going to be having our December 28th business meeting for January. I think enough people will be in town and willing to come between the holidays, so it's okay if we have it, it's okay if we cancel it. I just need to let applicants know what we're doing.
What would be the best way, what would be the best way for you to take inventory of who's not going to be present?
I mean, if we just want to do a quick hands up or email me, I believe a couple of people have told me they're going to be out of town, which is okay. I understand that's between holidays and that's that's kind of a slow week for most people's works as it is.
Okay. I won't be here at the business meeting if it's just easier to raise our hand now.
Same for me, I'll put some.
I'm here.
Okay,
I'm here.
The rest of the team is here, so that's,
all right.
so we're still good. That's
I'm not gonna hold it, you guys to it if you cannot make it based on anything coming up last minute or if sickness strikes any of us down, which hopefully it doesn't.
Do we need to designate a vice chair?
For the business meeting, not really. I typically kind of guide you through that. If anybody wants a little bit of practice, we can do a quick vote. I mean, I'm gonna say we're not, if Hissop's gonna be here, Commissioner Hissop.
I'm not doing that anymore.
No, he's a senior member that advises, so we have to have some of the newer members stepping up.
I just want to say, I don't want to be too nosy, but I noticed on your porch, you were getting a couple of holiday baskets that said to the Victorian Village Commission. So are you going to give us some fruit? Are you going to give us a bottle of wine? How are you going to share it with the commissioners?
I don't know, what you're.
See, I knew we could say that.
I had no
I
idea. what
counted
you were referring
three
to.
big baskets,
No.
Victorian Village Commission.
Interesting.
I think you might have to submit some photo documentation.
It was probably, they were probably too big, so they were not compliant. So understandable.
See what he says?
I see.
Rearranging the truth.
I see. Interesting. I'll see those when I get home.
He's probably planted them there.
I'm sure. Jeff has done that a couple of times, a couple of years. So, awesome. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Awesome. Thank you.
Second.
Second.